Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. In our last session, we covered up to the 5th shloka. The 5th shloka, Satyam Nushava Chididam Jadam Va Dukkham Sukham Veti Muda Vivada Adrushta Loka Niraham Pratiti Nishtha Vikalpa Parama Akhileshta. In our last session, we discussed in the 2nd shloka that when there is a fear of death, we have to take refuge in the one who is fearless, who doesn't fear death, one who is fearless and one who has conquered death, beyond death. Generally, we are afraid to talk of death. There are different kinds of fear we suffer from, but it can be largely called into 3 categories: fear of death, fear of deception, and fear of dejection. Fear of misery, sorrow, and pain, that is there. Then fear of deception, born out of ignorance, that we may be cheated, or the fear of the unknown because of ignorance. Then, of course, the most overwhelming fear is fear of death, that is going out of existence. So, when this fear is there, we have to overcome this fear, but we can overcome this fear by taking refuge in the one who has conquered fear, in the one who has conquered death, because death is the overwhelming fear. So nobody wants to go out of existence. But if we have the knowledge that there is no question of we going out of existence, there was no time when we didn't exist, or there will be no time when we will cease to exist. Then in the 2nd shloka, in the 3rd shloka, Bhagavan takes us to the truth through various fundamental inquiries. Here he takes about the cause and effect, which saw that always we want to find the cause. If an effect is seen, it is a human tendency to find the cause. Why this is like this? Why that is like that? How does the sun rise or sunset? And then we eventually came to know that neither the sun rises nor sets. We discovered that it is the Earth's rotatory motion projected on the sun, giving an illusion of movement of the sun across the sky. So we are always into cause hunting. If the effect is there, we want to find out the cause. That is what the scientific way is. So for the creation also, if this creation is there, then you want to find the cause. Who created this world? When was it created? How long it has been? Why was it created? All those questions will be there. Because of an inquisitive mind, we want to find out all that. But then we have seen that it is all vivarta only. In the creation, there is only an appearance. There is no real creation as such. But it has got a relative reality. A relative reality means in its own time it appears real. Like we have seen in Atma Bodh, Swakale Satyavad Bhati Prabodhe Satya Sadbhavet. So Swakale in its own time it appears real. Prabodhe Satya Asad Bhavit. So in the dream world, as a dreamer, the dream world is as much real to us as the waking world is real to us as a waker. Only when we awaken to the waking plane of consciousness from the dream state, then only we call the dream state as an illusion, not real, unreal. But not when we were a dreamer in the dream world, we were taking all the events and experiences as real as that which is happening to us now in the waking world. So finally, when we keep hunting for the cause, whether the insentient world created the sentient beings or the sentient beings created the insentient world, that cannot be possible because the same insentient world was already existing when the sentient being came. Insentient or the Jada Jagat cannot produce itself, or another sentient being cannot produce another sentient being who produced the other sentient being. So these will go on and on. The only plausible uh, argument one can put forward is that it is vivarta. Vivarta means it is an appearance. That's all. There is no appearance which has got a relative reality, not an absolute reality as such. So, like a painting, that is the cause, the so-called cause itself appears as the effect. There is, of course, a reality beyond the apparent. At the substratum of this apparent world, there is a reality. Without the reality, there cannot be a projection of illusion also. For the illusion to exist, there has to be the substratum of reality. For the illusory snake to exist, there has to be the substratum of a real rope. So on a real rope, only an illusion of a snake can be imagined in the twilight, in insufficient light. So without that substratum of reality of that rope, that illusion of a snake cannot happen. So of course, if there is a world and if it has got only a relative reality, there has to be a substratum which is real. So the focus has to be on that, and ultimate analysis we come to the conclusion that it is the substratum itself appearing as the world, as the real rope itself appearing as the snake because of the flaw in our vision, because of the insufficient light and so on. So there is an illusion of a snake there. So it is, the reality is there, but that appears as something different because of the limitations of the instruments through which we perceive the existence around us. We have seen how our perception is in the introduction itself, that we cannot completely rely. The instruments that are available to us, they are grossly limited. The sense organs, the mind and the intellect, they have their own limitations. So we have to transcend that. So in the fourth verse, the reason for our vision being a vision of duality and differences. Why do we see duality? Why do we see differences? This was discussed in the fourth shloka. So here we have seen is that it is the ego. Once the ego manifests, then we see the dualities and differences. As long as the ego doesn't manifest, there is no sense of duality or any differences. We have seen this in our experiences, like in the waking state of consciousness, waking plane of consciousness, as well as in the dream state of consciousness, we experience duality and the differences. But as soon as we go into the deep sleep state of consciousness, then there is no experience of duality or any differences at all. So the deep sleep state of experience on one side and the dream and the waking plane of experience on the other side. The only difference is the presence and absence of ego. Temporarily, the ego is absent in the deep sleep state, and therefore there is no notion of any duality or differences. Whereas the ego is very much active in the waking plane as well as in the dream state, and there we experience the dualities and differences. So this is the main thing why we experience duality. When the ego is active, Then the mind, intellect, the subtle body and the gross body. In the dream state, the subtle body is active, the mind, intellect, equipment, and then it creates all the differences and dualities. When that is absent, there is no difference, no duality. And then in the fifth shloka, we have seen the role of discussion. Vada, Vivada, Jalpa, Vitanda, and so on. The Guru Shishya Samvada, the dialogue between the disciple and the master, that is called as Samvada. Vada is a discussion to arrive at a firm conclusion. So Guru Shishya Samvada, where the truth is revealed. But Vivada is the ego trying to assert one's own knowledge. Jalpa is asserting how one is right. Vitanda is one doesn't have one's own point of view, but somehow have to show the other is wrong, the other fellow is wrong. So this kind of tarka and kutarka doesn't work in the realm of spiritual study. Now, we have done up to this in our last session. In our today's session, we have all seen pictures of various forms of the Lord as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, etc. We have heard his glories sung by saints, and have also heard that he is formless, nameless, and attributeless. A natural doubt arises in the mind whether the Lord is with or without form and attributes. Now, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi will discuss whether the Lord is Sagun Sakar or Nirgun Nirakar. In the sixth shloka, Sarupa Buddhir Jagatishware cha Sarupa Dhiratmaniyavadasti Arupa Atma Yadika Prapashyet Sradrishtireka Navadhirhi Purna Sarupa Buddhihi Jagati Ishwarecha Sarupa Dhira Atmani Yavadasti Arupa Atma Yadika Prapashyet Sa Drishti Eka Anavadihi Purna Yavad Atmani Swarupadhi Asti Jagati Ishwarecha Swarupa Buddhi. So now, as long as we feel, as long as I feel I am having a form, I am having a form, I am having qualities, I am having a form, then that Lord and this world is also having a form and qualities also. Yadi Atma Arupa ka prapashyet, if the self is without form, who will see? Sadrishti eka anavadihi purnahi. So that vision is alone without a limit and is complete. Now this Saguna and Nirguna Upasana has been debated many times. Saguna Upasana is the beginning stage of spiritual journey, whether one is following the Bhakti Yoga or the Jnana Yoga, path of inquiry, path of knowledge. It all starts with duality alone. So their Saguna Sakar Upasana is there. In the Jnana Yoga, the disciple worships his Guru, so that duality is maintained. That Upasana is there. Saguna and Nirguna Upasana. Now, Yatha Drishti Tatha Shrishti. As is a vision, so is the Srishti, so is the nature, so is the world around us. You see, as we see ourselves, we see others also like this in the same way. For example, now Lord Jesus appeared, and then the followers started following religion called Christianity. Now Christianity spread all over the world. If an African black man has to imagine Christ, he will imagine him as a black man. A Chinese or a Japanese, he has to imagine Christ, he will imagine with his own racial form, and so on. Yatha drishti tatha srishti. Similarly, as long as I consider myself to be a form with some qualities and so on, then I cannot imagine or conceive a Lord or a God without form and without attributes. Because that is the easiest thing. But if I have a form, then he has to also have a form and qualities. I cannot conceive, I cannot even imagine anything without form and attributes. Because in my state of ignorance, I'm considering myself to be the form, and therefore, if I have conceived a God, so that God also has to have a form, has to have some qualities, and so on. Then all the human qualities are also superimposed on that so-called God. So, for Upasana, as long as we consider ourselves to be limited by space, time, object, possession, or something like that, form. So we will need the support of the space, time, and object for our Upasana. Without taking the support, our mind cannot focus. Our mind is extremely fickle. And for an extremely fickle mind, there has to be some locus, some focus where it can concentrate, where it can focus. And therefore, we take the support of this space, time, and object in the Upasana, in Sagun Sakar Upasana. So the Lord is conceived as one with form, but with superhuman powers, this Sagun Sakar. Even those who talk that we don't worship a God with form. In other religions, in some religion, they say we don't worship a God with form. But they also take the support of the space, time, and object. Without that, they cannot focus the mind. Even in Islam also, these Muslims, they take the support of space. They face towards Kaaba. So they take the support of direction of space to focus their mind. So they have to focus towards that, taking the support of space, support of time. 5 different times they have to pray. Then they take the support of object. They have to focus their mind on that Kaaba, which is there in Saudi Arabia. They have to focus there. So space, time, and object, all three they have to take support of, without which they cannot pray. They cannot stand in any direction, any which way like that, or any time like that. So they have to take the support of all the three. Without that, we cannot focus. Our mind is extremely fickle. It is restless, so it has to be trained to focus. So something tangible has to be there for it. As long as we consider ourselves to be with form, then that Lord has also got form. Without that, we cannot conceive of a God which is formless. And forget about attributeless. Of course, those religions who advocate that our God is formless, but it is not attributeless. They have all the attributes, human type of attributes they have given to their Lord also. Their God also becomes angry and all that thing. So it is human attributes that is superimposed on that God. So as long as I consider myself to be having form, Lord can only be with form. In reality, though, this supreme being is absolutely formless and attributeless. Actually, that which is formless and attributeless cannot be named also. But as long as I consider myself to be with form, then it has to have a form, it has to have qualities also. So remaining identified with my form, even if I conceive of a formless God, it will be some other form, in some other kind of form. You see, so that any concept of a formless truth or God is only another superimposed form only. Because formlessness actually is not an attribute of the absolute truth. Because it is attributeless. And we have seen a number of times that the essential nature is existence absolute, consciousness or knowledge absolute, and bliss absolute. And they are the essential nature and not the quality. We have already earlier, we have differentiated between the difference between the quality and essential nature. So we have seen so many times, we have discussed the two paths, the Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is bringing that infinite, formless and attributeless, Nirgun Nirakar, formless and attributeless, absolute truth at the level of the finite level, giving it the form and the attributes for our convenience. This is Bhakti Yoga, bringing down the infinite at the level of the finite. And then Jnana Yoga is transcending the limited equipments that we have through which we perceive the world, and then realizing the infinite, being one with infinite. See, in the spiritual practice, it is a slow evolution. Nobody can directly worship. There cannot be a worship of Nirgun Nirakar or a God which is formless and attributeless. There cannot be. At the most, Sagun Sakar worship can be there, and with great difficulty, uh, Sagun Nirakar worship can be there. But Nirgun Nirakar is not possible. By the time we graduate to becoming worshipper of Nirgun Nirakar, we ourselves become Nirgun Nirakar. There is no worshipper and that which is worshipped, they become one. So it is a slow evolution from the worship of the Sagun Sakar to Sagun Nirakar and then to Nirgun Nirakar, being one with the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless and attributeless. Hanumanji put it very beautifully when he was asked by Lord Rama, what is our relationship? Explain. So now Lord Rama is asking his greatest bhakta, Hanumanji, what is our relationship? So Hanumanji is telling Lord Rama, Deha buddhya tu dasoham, Jiva buddhya tvam shakah, Atma buddhya tvam evaham, iti me nishchita matihi. Jiva buddhya tu dasoham. When I identify, Deha buddhya tu dasoham. When I identify myself with this body, I am your das, I am your servant. Deha buddhya tu dasoham. Jiva buddhya tvam shakah. When I identify myself with Jiva Bhava or the individuality, then I am a part of you. Tvam shakah. Atma buddhya tvameva. When I abide fully in my real self, then I am you, you are me, there is no difference. We are both one. Iti me nishchita matihi. This is my firm conviction. So, Atma buddhya tu dasoham. So to graduate to that level, Atma buddhya tvamevaham. From Deha buddhya tu dasoham to Atma buddhya tvamevaham. It is a slow evolutionary process. We start with the duality, Dvaita, then Vishishta Advaita, that is Jiva buddhya tvamamshaka, that is Vishishta Advaita, and then pure Advaita, Atma buddhya tvamevaham. So, Deha buddhya, Jiva buddhya, Atma buddhya. So Dvaita, Vishishta Advaita, Advaita. So this way is the evolutionary process. Hanumanji put it very beautifully. So this Sagun Sakar and Sagun Nirakar, they are according to one's own state on the spiritual path. There is no hard and fast rules. Initially, for a vast majority of us, we begin our upasana with the Sagun Sakar only, and slowly we start progressing and then evolving to a higher level of upasana where the Sagun Nirakar comes, and then we merge into the Nirgun Nirakar. Tvameva. In Bhagavad Gita also, in chapter 6, in chapter 7, verse 21, Lord Krishna says, Yo yo yam mam tanum bhaktaha. Whoever worships me in any form, I actually strengthen their faith in that form. Whoever worships any other form also, I actually strengthen any other deities, any other form, any other deities, I strengthen their faith in that. Then again, in chapter 9, shlok 23, Ye api anya devata bhaktaha. Those who worship other deities and gods and all that thing, they are worshipping me alone. Without any doubt, Lord Krishna says they are also worshipping me alone, but improperly. They do not know how to worship. Improperly they are worshipping, but they are worshipping me alone. Because if this Lord is infinite, there cannot be two infinite. There can be only one infinite. And if there is that one infinite, nothing exists other than infinite. If somebody claims there are two infinite, then by virtue of the presence of the other infinite, both become finite. So if you take that supreme reality to be an infinite entity, then nothing exists other than that. Whatever we may worship, it is his worship alone, without exception. This is a simple understanding. So therefore, Lord Krishna is very clear. Whoever worship, whichever deity, it is my worship alone. These are the words of an infinite entity. And therefore, he has got no discrimination. It is not if a God insists that you have to worship me alone and no other deity, that means this particular God is afraid of competition. This entity should be finite entity and afraid of competition. The one who is infinite reality, he says that you worship anything or being, it is my worship alone, because apart from me nothing exists. Other than I, nothing exists. Everything is an extension of my own existence. So this is a very important shloka clearing the doubts about Sagun Upasana and Nirgun Upasana, Sagun Sakar and Nirgun Nirakar and all that thing. So one has to have a clear understanding about it. Now, the next three verses explain how we experience this world of plurality, beginning with the 7th shloka. Yat panchakoshatmakamasti deham tadantara kim bhuvanam chakasti deham vina panchavidam tadetad pashyanti keva bhuvanam bhanantu yat panchakoshatmakam makamasti deham tadantara kim bhuvanam chakasti deham vina panchavidham tadetad pashyanti keva bhuvanam bhanantu. Now, panchakoshatmakam deham yad asti tad antara bhuvanam chakasti kim. Apart from the body made up of the panchakoshas, the 5 sheaths, does the world shine or exist? Tat panchavidham deham vina keva etad bhuvana pashyanti bhadantu. Let people say, without that 5-fold body, that is the panchakosha, can this world be perceived? Can we perceive this world? So without this panchakosha, who can perceive this world? It is not possible. So panchakosha. Now panchakosha, we have seen many times, the 5 sheaths, the annamaya kosha or the food sheath or the gross physical body. Then the pranamaya kosha or the vital air sheath. Then the manomaya kosha or the mental sheath. Then the vijnanamaya kosha or the intellectual sheath. And finally the anandamaya kosha or the bliss sheath. So annamaya kosha, the first one, that is the gross physical body. Then pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha and vijnanamaya kosha, the 3 together form the subtle body. And the last one is the anandamaya kosha, The bliss sheath is called as the causal body. That is the cause of the subtle body and the gross body. Because of the ignorance of the self, then we got the subtle body, the mind, the intellectual mental sheath, and the vital air sheath, and then the gross physical form also. If the ignorance of self was not there, then this gross and subtle body would not have manifested, would have been in eternal bliss. So these panchakoshas, they have to be together to give us the experience of this world. One of the 5 sheets alone cannot give us the experience of the world. See, in the deep sleep state, the other 4 sheets are absent. Annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha sheath, we do not experience it. The respiration goes on, but that is not the mental sheath. The mind and the intellect equipment is also absent. So we do not have any experience of this world in the deep sleep state. Just one sheath is there, the with Anandamaya kosha. It is also called as the Karan Sharir or the causal body, which is total ignorance. So any one sheath cannot give us the experience of this world. There has to be a combination of 2 or more sheaths together. In the dream state, in the absence of the gross body or the Annamaya kosha, the physical, the food sheath, we get the experience of the dream state. Because of the subtle body and the causal body is present there, we get that experience. But one sheath alone cannot give the experience. So, in the, we have this light, sunlight that comes, one ray of light, which is actually colorless. But if we have to have the experience of the Vigoric colors in that ray of light, we have to pass it through the prism. This experiment that we have done in school science class. So when it is passed through the prism, then it splits into the 7 colors. So without that instrument called the prism, it won't be splitting into the 7 colors. So if you have to have the experience of the 7 colors of that light, then we have to use a medium through which it can be passed through to get that experience. So without the panchakoshas, we cannot have the experience of this world. So when seen through this medium of the panchakoshas, the illusion of this diversity of the world is experienced. So we have seen that one sheath alone cannot give us any experience as such. This mind alone creates duality. Absence of mind, there is no duality as in the deep sleep state. So as we make our vision subtler and subtler, the duality and the diversity and the differences will start vanishing. Actually, it is because of the medium through which we observe this world that is creating all the duality. As you transcend the medium itself, or if we start making our vision also subtler and subtler, the duality and everything will start vanishing. Simple thing is that the entire world of matter, including living and non-living, sentient and insentient, consists of matter. And matter, our scientists have broken down into atoms, molecules and atoms, and further it has split the atom into subatomic particles, electrons, protons and neutrons, and of course beyond that also. Now suppose if we have a device through which we can see electrons, protons and neutrons, and we wear that device and look around this world, what will we see? Will we see the mountain, trees, buses, cars, people, road, building, or anything like that? No. We'll see only electrons, protons, and neutrons in different permutation and combination moving around in motion. That's all we'll see. Suddenly, innumerable, in n number of forms, names and forms, living and non-living, have all disappeared. They have all condensed into these subatomic particles in different permutation and combination moving around. You see, we have just made our visions settle, sukshma. Further, beyond the subatomic particles, it is said that it is only energy. So matter unmanifest is energy, energy manifest is matter. It is only energy, a homogeneous mass of energy. If we can have a device through which to perceive this energy, what we see, this world around us is nothing but a homogeneous mass of energy in motion. So the subtler we make our vision, and then the difference starts disappearing. And the subtlest vision is that there is no differences at all. There is only one reality, absolute reality, on which everything appears. There is one water in the ocean, and which manifests, which appears as infinite millions and millions of waves on its surface. So waves have got no separate independent existence apart from that water. But they appear, different waves appear, different shapes, sizes, and length and breadth and speed and all those things. Apart from that, you see the surf also, bubbles also, and so many things on that surface, but it is nothing but water alone. Water itself appearing in so many things. So as we keep making our vision subtler and subtler, the difference starts disappearing. It is when we are seeing it through the medium of something called as the mind intellect equipment or these panchakoshas, then we see these different kinds of names and forms, living and non-living and so on. As we start making it subtler and subtler, then all the differences simply disappear. Now, like the example we took about the prism. Now, when the sunlight is passing through the prism, we see the split seven colors. But if you remove the prism, there are no seven colors, it's just one light. That's all. So it is when we perceive it through the prism, this is what is seen. Similarly, we are perceiving this entire world through the so-called prism of the Panchakoshas, the five sheets, and that is why we are having the experience of the differences and diversities. What is this world that we experience? In the 8th shloka, Bhagavan says, Shabdadi Rupam Bhuvanam Samastam Shabdadi Satyendriya Vritti Bhasya Satyendriyana Manaso Vashesyat Manomayam Tad Bhuvanam Vadamaha. Shabdadi Rupam Bhuvanam Samastam. Shabdadi Satta Indriya Vritti Bhasya Satta Indriyanam Manasah Vashesyat Manomayam Tad Bhuvanam Vadama. So, Samastam Bhuvanam Shabda Adi Rupam. The entire world is the form of sound, that is Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasagandha, sound, touch, taste, colors and forms, taste and smell. So these are the 5 types of things that is experienced here. Indriya Vritti Bhasya. Shabda Adi Satta Indriya Vritti Bhasya. The existence of this sound, etc. is illumined by the functions of the sense organs. Then Indriyanam Satta Manasa Vashe. So existence of the sense organs is in the possession or is in the control of the mind. Then Tad Bhuvanam Manomayam Vadama. Then therefore we say the world is full of or made up of mind alone. So the sense organs is in the control of the mind. Two sense organs, you perceive the world. Sense organs themselves, they are under the control of the mind, and therefore we see that the perception is of the world is nothing but the mind alone. In the Jagat, we experience objects in 5 different ways. Because we have got 5 sense organs, we experience only 5 types of objects. Fortunately, our sense organs are limited to only 5. Otherwise, it would have been a big headache. Imagine somebody having 100 sense organs. So 5 sense organs, 5 types of objects we only go to experience in this world. the sound, the sense of touch, the sense of the colors and forms, then the taste and the smell. That's all. And there is no sixth one. That is where we go. We have got 5 sense organs, 5 ways we experience this world. So, but sense organ in themselves, they cannot function unless they are connected to the mind. So they have to be, sense organs themselves are useless. They are only golaka, they are instruments. Unless they are connected to the mind, they can't function. So we see, for example, if somebody is reading a novel and we call that person by name, and then that person, as if that person has not heard, then we call a little loudly, and yet that person is not giving attention. And then suddenly we go and shake him, hey, I've been calling you. I was lost in this novel, you see, it is the climax, and I'm very eager to know what is the climax. So that means his mind was not connected to the ear, but focused on his eyes and onto the page he was reading. It doesn't mean that he was temporarily deaf, no. Unless that mind is connected to the sense organs, we cannot get the experience. Sometimes we are looking out on the street, but we are thinking of something else. Somebody known to us passes by, and we are as if looking through that person. And then that person tells that I was passing by, you were staring, and you didn't even recognize. Because the mind was not connected to the eyes. Though we were looking at the street with the open eyes, we are thinking something else. So mind was not connected actually to the eyes. So this mind is required even if the sense organs are perfectly functioning one. Without the mind getting connected to the sense organs, we will not get the experience of this world. A distracted mind also cannot focus on things. We want to study a book, read a book, or focus on that, but if there are distractions, somebody has switched on a radio somewhere, some song is coming, or somebody is chatting and all that, oh, I can't study in this disturbance. I want absolute silence. So if mind gets distracted here and there, it cannot focus, it cannot concentrate. So without the mind, or a mind which is distracted cannot give us the experience. Therefore, the entire world is experienced only as the modification of thought in the mind. This is the projection of the mind. Modification of thought or projection of the mind. Now, here again, we have to see this world in 2 ways. The world, there are 2 types of world. Now, what are these 2 types of world? We have gone through this earlier also. One is called as the Ishvara Srishti, the other is called as Jiva Srishti. So both are the projections of the mind. The waking world that we see, it is a projection of the total mind, and it's called as Ishvara Srishti. The dream world that we see is the projection of the individual mind, and it is called as Jiva Srishti, 100% individual mind, and Jiva Srishti, it is our own projection. Similarly, in the waking world, that is in the Ishvara Srishti, again we create a Jiva Srishti. Each and every one of us creates a Jiva Srishti according to our own mind, our own likes and dislikes. So we create. We like something of this world, we do not like something of this world. And then it is our Jiva Srishti. Our Jiva Srishti need not match with another person's Jiva Srishti. They may be different also, like that. So they keep on changing. So within Ishvara Srishti, we have created a Jiva Srishti. Jiva Srishti again is our mental projection only, according to our own likes and dislikes. Actually, there is no problem in the Ishvara Srishti. The problem is in the Jiva Srishti, that we create according to our likes and dislikes, and we suffer. So when we like something and we don't get it, we will suffer. When we don't like something and we get it, then we suffer. When we like something and we get it, and still we don't, and still we suffer because we cannot hold on to it for long, forever, then too we suffer. So This is the Jiva Srishti which is causing this problem. So in this Jiva Srishti, we like something and we don't get it, we suffer, we become miserable. We don't like something, we get it, again we become miserable. We like something and we do get it, but still we suffer because we cannot hold on to it forever. At some point in time, we are going to lose it. So, or either we are going to lose it, or either that thing loses its quality which was giving us pleasure. So either way we suffer. And why this suffering is, it is because of my own Jiva Srishti, because of my own mental projection of likes and dislikes in this world. So if I set aside my likes and dislikes and live in the Ishvara Srishti, there will be least problem for me. So these are all modifications of our thought, modifications in the mind. The Ishvara Srishti is the projection of the total mind, that is Samashti Vasana. The tendency is the total vasanas according to which the Lord creates the world. It is the total vasana. So this world is mind alone, whether it is Jiva Srishti or Ishvara Srishti, and so on. In its own time, it appears real. When we awaken to a higher dimension of consciousness, then it appears that it was all an illusion. There was no reality to that. Having said that, now concluding the thought which started in the 7th shloka, Bhagavan goes on to the root of the mind. Now we saw that the mind projected this Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti, total mind and the individual mind. Now he is getting to the root of the mind. What is this mind now? Shlok 9. Dhiya saho deti dhiyastam eti lokastato dhi pravibhasya eshah dhilok janma kshayadham purnam sadvastu janma kshayashunyamekam dhiyasa saho deti dhiyastamiti. Dhiya sah udeti dhiya astameti lokah tata dhi pravibhasya eshah dhiloka janma kshaya dham purnam sadvastu janma kshaya shunyam ekam. So esha loka dhiya sah udeti dhiya astameti. So this world arises with the thought of I and sets with the thought of I. So it arises with the thought of I and sets with the thought of I. Astamiti. Tata dhi pravibhasya. Therefore, this world is illumined by the I thought. Sadvastu dhi loka janma kshaya dhama. Purnam ekam janma kshaya shunyam. So now, the reality is the abode of the birth and decay of this I thought. And the world is one complete without birth and decay. So now we are getting to the root of the mind now. What is this mind? In the previous shloka we saw Jagat is the mind. Now here we are investigating mind itself. Mind, of course, as we have seen many times, that mind is a flow of thought. When there is no flow of thought, there is absence of mind, temporary absence of mind. When the thought manifests, mind is active. In the absence of thought, mind is absent. So, mind is a flow of thoughts. Whether it is good or bad or indifferent thought, it doesn't matter. So, it is a flow of thoughts. Now, out of the total number of thoughts, it can be broadly divided into two sets of thought. One is aham vritti or I thought. The other is idam vritti or this thought. Other than I thought, everything else is this or that thought, whatever it is. So for every thought, I thought will be common. Without the I thought, the other thoughts cannot exist. First, suppose this is a cell phone. Now, this is a cell phone. This thought has got no meaning unless it is qualified by I am, I exist, and then I thought is first, and then I know this is a cell phone. Now I say this is a cell phone. I know this is a cell phone is already assumed. So without that, I thought that the idam thought or tadvrutti, this thought or that thought has got no meaning. So without I thought, the other will not arise at all. First, the I thought has to arise, and then the other thoughts will follow. So this is idam vrutti, and I thought actually for every experience I thought is important. Without I thought alone illumines, so to say, because I thought is endowed with the reflected consciousness, and this I thought illumines the idam vrutti, this thought and that thought, it is illumined by this I thought, because I thought alone is endowed with this chidabhasa or the reflected consciousness. As we have seen, intellect is the only place where the consciousness can be reflected, and that is where this I thought arises. And this I thought has got the ability, it is endowed with that reflected consciousness to illumine other thoughts. Without the I thoughts, there is no existence for other thoughts at all. So I thought remains common, and this idam vrutti, this thought, it will keep on changing according to different objects, situations, circumstances, and so on. So this aham vrutti remains the same, it is common. And another important thing is that this I thought is not continuous. With every experience, I thought arises, and with every experience, when it ends, this I thought also ends. So ego arises with every experience, and then it dissolves. Then another experience comes, and then it dissolves. But this is taking so fast that we give a continuity to that, and we think that it is the same I who is experiencing everything. You see, this ego keeps on arising and going up and down like that. It arises, then it sets, it goes, it gets dissolved, then with new experience, again it arises, again it goes, and we give a continuity to that. Actually, the pure self doesn't experience anything, because other than it doesn't nothing exists other than itself. So there is no question of any experience for it. It is this ego only coming and going like that, and because of this continuity, we give a continuity to that. We think that it is so fast, we think that it is continuous, it's the same ego. But every time, with every experience, there is a new ego arising and going on. It is like this sparkler that is lit during the Diwali time, and the children, they move it in circle and gives an illusion of a circular light. But actually, it is not circular as such, or some lights which move around in circle and it gives an illusion of a circular light or something like that. But it is not so. It is one light very quickly getting off and on like that, and gives an illusion of a movement around like that. So here, one homogeneous circle as if it is there, but it is not so. It keeps coming and going with every experience. And we give a continuity to that. So therefore, now what is important thing is that if we have to find out the source, now we are getting to the root of the mind. So we have to get, if we have to get to the root of the mind, we have to get to the source from where the thought arises. Because without the thought, mind has got no existence. Mind itself is thought. One can say mind intellect equipment. In our Shastras, subtle division they have made. In the intellect, the thought arises. In the mind, the feelings, emotions, and sentiments arise. So a subtle distinction they have made between mind and the intellect. Otherwise, it is mind, one can say. So it is all these only. Without that, there is no existence for the mind. Now, what is the source of this thought? So abidance in the source where this I manifests from. It rises and it disappears. So is the abidance in the reality of the absolute truth. So this source or the substratum, now this source of the substratum, Hiloka, Janma Kshaya Dhama Purnam Sadvastu. Janma Kshaya Shunyam Ekam. So this is without birth and death. That is what you call that. It is the birth and death of the I thought. This is the abode of the birth and death of the I thought, the source, and it itself has got no birth or death. It is complete Purnam without birth and decay. So that abode where the thought is born and dies, that source, that itself is without birth and decay. So abidance in that is abidance in the reality. And it is Nitya, eternal, Purnam, complete, infinite. See? So, like we have seen this so many times. This example we have taken up when we were discussing about why we cannot be this gross physical body, and we were discussing all the possible causes also. We have seen this law of conservation of matter and energy also while discussing this about an existence of that self or the consciousness. So when we say that there is no birth or death for this, there is no decay, as the law of conservation says that there is no creation or destruction. Matter or energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it is subject to transformation. That is the law of conservation. And the same thing, but law of conservation is applicable to this matter and energy. This matter and energy is actually insentient, non-living, jada. There has to be a conscious knower to know the existence of matter and energy and their transformation. And this conscious knower itself should not be subject to transformation. Otherwise, it will never know the transformation taking place in some other entity. A continuously transforming entity cannot know the changes taking place in another changing entity. So this conscious knower should not be subject to transformation. So if the law of conservation is applicable to inert, insentient, non-living matter and energy, it should be all the more applicable to this consciousness. This consciousness also cannot be created, nor destroyed, nor is subject to transformation. And therefore, this supreme reality, this absolute truth, here it is said that Sad Vastu Janma Kshaya Shunyam Ekam. There is no birth, there is no death or decay, and it is one without a second, infinite. Now, how to focus, how to use this now for meditation. In Vedanta, we have this theory and then practice so that we can realize this. Now, when we do this japa sadhana, chanting of the Lord's name or mantra, earlier the focus will be on the sound of the mantra. Then we shift from the sound of the mantra to the thought of the mantra. Okay. And then the focus should shift from thought of the mantra to the sandhi kala or the gap between the chanting of the two mantras. Actually, that is what the most important aspect of japa sadhana is. Japa sadhana is not that how many malas I am doing per day, how many times I have chanted the name. That is not the importance in Jnana Yoga. Maybe in Bhakti Yoga that may have some importance, but not in Jnana Yoga. In Jnana Yoga, number of times we chant is not important. Slowly, initially, to make the mind single pointed, we continuously keep on chanting so that we do not allow any other thought to enter. So no dissimilar thoughts come. So we continuously keep on chanting to shut out all the other thoughts. But as we gain some kind of single pointedness, then we have to focus on the sound of the mantra, then the thought of the mantra, and then after that, then we have to focus on the sandhi kala or the space, the gap between the chanting of two mantras. So the silence between the two mantras. We have chanted once, say Om Namah Shivaya, we chanted. And before we chant again the Om Namah Shivaya, in between, observe the silence until a thought arises in the mind. As long as the thought doesn't arise, we keep silent. As soon as a thought arises, even a thought that now my mind is thought free, that itself is a thought. So as soon as a thought arises, now we use the chanting of the mantra or the chanting of the name to cut the other thought that arises. If no thought arises, we remain silent. As soon as a thought arises, we use the mantra to cut it out. So Om Namah Shivaya, observe maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it is. As soon as a thought arises, we again chant Om Namah Shivaya. So earlier to do one mala, we used to take say 5 minutes. Now it may take 15 minutes also. We do not know. So slowly the time increases like that. So observing the Sandhi Kala, because sound manifests from silence and then goes back into silence. So silence is the substratum from which the sound manifests and then goes back. If we don't find a continuous sound coming here and there, and then it has to manifest from silence and then it will go back into silence like that. So focusing on the Sandhi Kala is an important practice. So then the same is with the source of the thought. Then there are other techniques also we can use in this practice of meditation, like we can observe the ocean. We observe the ocean and just close the eyes and observe the ocean with lots of waves coming over it, and slowly these waves are coming down, and then there is only one sheet of water. So now there is one sheet of water and nothing else, no waves are there. As the vrittis in between the Sandhi Kala we have observed, slowly we are observing the ocean on the screen of our mind, and slowly the waves are disappearing and only a sheet of water is there and nothing else, no ripple or nothing like that, silent. So these are some of the techniques that we can use. Then we can also have this kind of technique where instead of, we first start with observing the contents of the mind, just randomly. We close the eyes and what is going on in the mind, the contents of the mind. And then shift the focus from the contents to the container. Basically, focusing on the container is again focusing on the substratum or the source from where the thoughts arise. So these are some of the ways we can practice meditation. Now, having said that, if inquiry is the direct path to Saddarshana, what is the relevance of spiritual practices like puja, japa, etc.? So the verse explains. Now the 10th verse, Bhagavan explains what is the place for puja, japa, etc. if inquiry is the direct path for Saddarshana or the realization of the self. So what it is, we'll take up in our next session. Now if anybody has got any questions, so they can ask.
Swamiji, you said the entire process starts when the ego comes in, or I matter comes in. But right, somebody must take a decision on when that ego will arise or will be allowed to arise. Is it the pure self that takes the decision?
Pure self doesn't have ego.
Then who takes the decision?
No one takes the decision. It is our habitual thing that we cannot remain silent. We have to keep on doing something like that. We have made it a habit. We can't sit in silence. It is like our monkeys. You see, monkeys can't sit in silence in one place. They have to keep on jumping here and there. That is what the mind does. You see, but temporarily it goes into silence when we are in the deep sleep state, isn't it? Temporarily it goes into silence. This problem manifests only when we are in the dream state or the waking state. In the deep sleep, it doesn't disturb us. But it has to happen in the waking plane of consciousness. That is why the practice of meditation is to silence the mind. We have to silence the mind and listen, because this mind is a continuous non-stop chatterbox. It is like, you see a car which stops at the signal. Red signal is there, the car has stopped, but the driver keeps on raising the car, pushing the accelerator, restless, because he has been forced to stop at that signal. So similarly, the mind is tied down. The mind can't do that. It has to keep on doing something. So now the signal is there, the driver can rest there, but no, he'll keep on raising the car, pushing his accelerator, and as soon as it is green, he'll rush. So like that it is. So therefore, we have to bring this mind under control. It is mind is the culprit. That is what it is. So we have to bring it under control. This continuously thinking about something, that is what it is. Make it blank. It is not easy to do that, but the practices are there. Slowly we'll be able to think. The only thing is that because we have got so many vasanas, because of which desires arise, because of which we are put into action, into karma, and therefore our mind constantly keeps on thinking about this desire, this action, going here, going there, doing this, doing that, and all that is continuously happening like that. So therefore this is the problem. So when we reduce the vasana to the practice of Chidakas Dharana, Japa sadhana is also very good to reduce the vasana, Nishkama Karma Yoga is very good, Patipaksha Bhavana is there, Manduki Mudra is there, and so on. These 5-6 practices are there which can help us reduce the vasanas to a great extent. To that extent, our desires will reduce. To that extent, our mind will be calmer. And then it is easier in the process of meditation also. And the more we remain into silence, the more peaceful we experience ourselves. And then when we get out into the world, because we have to live in this world, we have to act in this world also, but it will be from a different level when we'll be interacting with the world, dealing with the world. Because now we are enjoying the peace that we have gathered there in the meditation practice.
One small question, Swamiji. We call the Supreme Lord, we call the Purusha, and there is the Prakriti. What is this Prakriti?
Prakriti and Purusha, they are not two different things. Okay, so it is like fire and its burning power. So one is the substratum and the other is the Shakti that operates, and that Prakriti is created with the creation of this world, and that is this Maya Shakti, whatever it is called as. So it is the absolute truth with the conditioning of Maya Shakti of Prakriti, the Ishvara creates this world. So they are not two different things, but they are the one thing alone, but it is depicted in two different ways. Purusha and Prakriti, in forms they are depicted in different ways. So like that it is, but it is actually one alone, because you cannot separate fire from the burning power. Or we cannot separate that heat and light from that fire. This is heat and this is light alone. That cannot be separated also. They are together only. They are not two different things. That is the creative power.
Very kind, very kind. Thank you very much.
Swamiji, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Does stanza 6, shloka 6 is Sakar and Nirakar. Sakar and Sagun and Nirakar and Nirgun.
Sagun Sakar, Sagun Nirakar, and then Nirgun Nirakar. Forget about Nirgun Nirakar. We can focus only on Sagun Sakar and Sagun Nirakar.
Yeah. So when a seeker is traveling from Sakar Sagun, and when he becomes attains the maturity, he finds the rituals little superfluous, because his aim is to still to go further. I don't say that he must leave the rituals and all, but छोड़ना नहीं है, छूट जाना चाहिए. Because now he revels in a different world. Now, don't you think this is, now my delicate question is, what should he do? Leave when he finds that these rituals are little superfluous for going further. He should leave, or what should he do? Because I do remember in 1986 when I started straight away and unknowingly with Ashtavakra Gita at the Paidas Hall in Bombay. And at that time, another Swamiji warned me that to begin, you are beginning and you are going in the initial stage at a wrong place. Because if you are going to the temple, you'll stop going to the temple after listening to Ashtavakra Gita. So, you know what I'm trying to say, that uh, I can be neither here nor there if Ashtavakra Gita is not understood properly. So this delicate question is, what should he do when he is graduating from the Sakar Sagun to further, say?
Sagun Sakar to that Sagun Nirakar. No, the thing is that as we progress on the spiritual path in our practices, slowly those practices which have fulfilled their purpose, that will drop off of its own accord as we progress. You see, so that will come when when we take up the 10th shloka. We'll be discussing this in more detail. We just conclude up to the 9th shloka. When we take up the 10th shloka, we'll go into the details for that. That is about the upasana, only what happens in this puja, japa and all that thing that has come there. So this we'll go into detail in our next session. So I'm not taking it much in that. So when we discuss the 10th shloka, we'll go into the details of this.
Swamiji, but with the Atma Bodh, Advait Makran, all these books, we are not even we are going to the Nirgun Nirakar state.
You can't yet go to Nirgun Nirakar, maybe Sagun Sakar, Nirgun Nirakar, then there is no worship. Who will do whose upasana?
because Dragdrashya Vivek taught us that do Savikalpa Samadhi.
In Dragdrashya Vivek, we did Savikalpa Samadhi. Drishyanu with Savikalpa Samadhi is there. So we'll discuss about this thing, about the different types of sadhana that we do in the initial stages when we walk the spiritual path, and they have their purpose to serve, no doubt about it. Puja part has got its own purpose. Japa sadhana has got its own purpose. But you see, it is very clear. In Bhajagovindam also, it is very clear. Adi Shankaracharya ji says, Purute Ganga Sagara Gamanam Vrata Paripalanam Athava Danam Jnana Vihina Sarva Matena Bhajatina Muktim Janma Shatena. So all these practices are fine to a certain level, but without jnana, Bhajatina Muktim Janma Shatena. Taking vrata and everything is fine. Knowing the self.
And this creates problem in the house. If one is believing
when there are two people living in the same house at different levels of evolution, requiring different sets of practices, there may be a clashes, but actually there should not be a clashes. Each individual should follow what suits them the best, because all of us are unique physically, mentally, intellectually, and therefore we are unique on the spiritual path as well. So our evolutionary level on the spiritual path is also different, and therefore we'll need different types of practices also, teachings also. So one should not interfere in others' practice and teachings and things like that. Whatever is suitable for them, they should follow that. That is an important aspect, you see. So no two people are unique. No two people are same. They are all unique. Even 10 people going to the same temple at the same time using the same path, their footprints will not match. You see, so this we have to accept. Each and every one of us will walk a unique path to realization of self. Though 10 disciples coming to the same master, taking the same teachings, will eventually walk 10 different paths to realize the self. So that has to be accepted. All of us are unique in our spiritual evolutionary stages. We are physically, mentally, and intellectually different. So our capacities are different. What sadhana, one sadhana may suit one sadhaka, that sadhana may not suit another sadhaka. So they have to follow what suits them, they have to follow that. And therefore, Sanatana Dharma is great. We have got many paths to reality. When somebody asks Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, how many paths are there to realize the self or for moksha? So he said smilingly that as many are the people, so many are the paths. Now you choose.
Therefore, Bhagwan Raman Maharshi has warned us initially that there should not be Vivad and the Vitadambavad.
So therefore, this Vad should not be there, Vivada should not be there, Vitanda and Jalpa should not be there, Tarka and Kutarka should not be there, Vitarka should not be there.
But today's Swamiji's shlok must have shaken, in the using Yogi Bhai's word, blasted some of the certainties about the Saguna Sakar and Nirgun Nirakar.
As we progress,
no, I don't think so, because my belief still stands. Whatever we have learnt in Advait Makrand, they still remain without getting bashing, without receiving a bashing.
Anybody else? Rasheshwari?
Yeah.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Yogi Pankaj.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Swamiji, can I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
For Sagun Sakar, in Bhakti Yoga, Sagun Sakar is required, and at least I feel like, because Jnana Yoga, like, you go on negating one by one, but Bhakti Yoga, only you have that Sagun Sakar, one Brahma you worship, and you go on that path ahead. You can take so many people's example, Rohit Das, then Meera and Tulsi Das and all. They followed, like, Narsimha Mehta, all they followed one Sagun Sakar Brahma, like, and ultimately they gave away. So I feel that in Bhakti Yoga, because they are not concerned with whether there is a Dvaita or a no, or I don't know, that's my understanding. So I'm asking you, like, whether it is a Bhakti Yoga or ultimately the both, all path, as you said, it leads to one Brahma only. Like.
Yeah, one place only, actually.
Yeah.
You see, we can take the examples of three bhaktas. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was a bhakta of Devi Ma.
Ma Kali.
And then Tukaram Maharaj was bhakta of Vithala. Namdev Maharaj was bhakta of Vithala.
Yeah.
Now these three examples come, they are all bhaktas. But then for Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, that Devi Ma knew that he has been caught up in my form, he has to go beyond form. Therefore, Totapuri Maharaj was sent to him. Similarly, Namdev Maharaj, at the age of 9, he got the darshan of Lord Vithala. So he had an arrogance also, a pride also. He was proud about it that at the age of so young age, I got a darshan of Lord Vithala. But the thing is that having darshan of Lord Vithala is not enough, isn't it? So therefore, there is an incident when he was the contemporary of Lord Jnaneshwara and his three siblings also. So then the potter was called to test out all the pots. So they hit on the head. This potter hit on everybody's head, and one by one. And then he said that these Jnaneshwar brothers, 4 of them, they were all good. When he hit this Namdev Maharaj's head, he said that this is not well matured. So he got very depressed and he went to Lord Vithala and asked him that why this fellow said like that, it is not mature. He said that yes, it is not matured. Then your guru is waiting for you to give you knowledge by which it will get matured. That is when he goes to Visoba Khechar in the forest. He was sitting, he was lying in the temple, Shiva temple, with his feet on the Shivalingam.
His legs on the lingam.
Shivalingam.
Yeah.
And then that is the story which everybody is familiar about.
Yeah.
Then he gets the knowledge of the non-dual reality from Visoba Khechar. When he returns home, it is evening time, the door is closed and somebody knocks on the door from outside. So this Namdev Maharaj from inside asks, who is it outside? So from outside the sound comes, I am Vithala. So Namdev said that I don't want to meet such a Vithala who is only outside and not inside at the same time.
Yes, yes.
The same thing with Tukaram Maharaj. If you see his Abhangas,
Yeah.
official Abhangas, and his the latter Abhangas, if you see, it is pure Advaita.
Yes,
You
yes,
see?
I agree.
So,
Earlier and
so the Bhakta in Bhakti Marga, what happens is that at some point in time, Bhakta becomes one with the object of devotion. And that is when he realizes the non-dual reality. That is what happened to Mirabai also, to Tukaram Maharaj also,
yeah.
and to the Namdev Maharaj, and to the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also. So it is Bhakti. There are only two paths, Bhakti and Jnana. There is no third path. Either
Yeah.
through Bhakti or through Jnana. Whichever is
Yeah.
suitable for you, you have to follow that. Easy.
Yeah. No, but when you say that we get darshan, whose darshan they got? But if there is no whose darshan they got?
So they got darshan of the Lord, but getting the darshan of the
But
Lord is
which
not
Lord?
enough.
When you are, there is no Lord.
Huh.
You say
So,
there is no
no.
Lord as such.
So,
You are
but
only
we have
Lord.
conceived it. We have conceived it. Now they have, Namdev got the darshan of Lord Vithala.
But what they means he came, he threw, he was doing seva and all.
So he got the darshan. Now Ramakrishna got the darshan of Devi Ma, but then Devi Ma is not that form. The reality of Devi Ma is beyond that form, name and form. So once he realized that, you see, once Namdev realized it, Tukaram Maharaj realized it, even Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also realized that. So you see, initially we take the assistance of the form. So either through bhakti we come to the knowledge, or to jnana we come to knowledge. So jnana and bhakti and jnana, they are not different. They are actually the same. It leads to the same goal. There is no confusion there. Only the adhikaris are different. For bhakti, the adhikari is Shraddha and Prema. For Jnana, the adhikari is Viveka and Vairagya.
But how Brahma takes play means comes into Sagun Sakar roop, like, you know.
So he doesn't come into Sagun Sakar. Sagun Sakar is, we have brought him down for our convenience.
Yeah, but that is what, that is just an image, or that is reality?
That is, now the form, see, all these forms have come and gone. Where is Lord Krishna's form today? Where is Lord Rama's form today? The forms are not real. Reality is that which was behind the form.
Yeah.
You see, that is the reality. The forms will come and go. Forms are temporary. But the reality is that which is behind the form.
No, but now if we call Brahma, then whether they can come with the Sagun Sakar, like, you know.
No, Brahman is formless and attributeless. And therefore it cannot have a name also. Brahman is just a working name we have given for our convenience.
Okay, Swamiji, thank you very much.
Yes.
Hariyo.
Swami Shankat.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purname Madaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.